Religious psychosis has become a genuine and very tangible issue for me personally. Don't worry, I'm not susceptible to it. I may love Godspell, but that's just a personality flaw. It's not indicative of a larger trend. Relax. You guys are really gonna have to come on a journey with me for the makeup today. I used to love the storytelling done by Bellatown on TikTok. Granted, I wasn't super close or involved with this particular creator's work, but I enjoyed watching. Eloquently crafted reads and roasts, beautifully articulated and cleverly structured storytelling. The bitch had it figured out. And then they found Jesus and went to conversion therapy camp. Kind of. Alex reads Tarot's recent transformation into Alex in the Ordinary. That one certainly caught me off guard. I never would have suspected it from her. And unlike everybody in the comments who are saying, that sounds about right, for about a year now I've definitely had a weird feeling about her and I've started scrolling. Bitch, no you didn't. And second of all, if you did, why didn't you fucking say anything? And thirdly, I don't care anyway. I didn't catch any of that. I still liked her. And we already knew she was a Christian, but now she has forsaken her gift for tarot reading as well. And for a third example for you, a personal close friend of mine in the drag scene back when I was still going and participating in it, after we had our fallout, I found out almost a year later that they found Jesus and left drag and homosexuality behind them in pursuit of a wife. Somehow I feel like the most sane person in that conversation looking like this. Happy days, my name is Daisy Mays, and welcome back to Daisy Chains. This is the series where I share video essays on things that have been rattling around in my head lately. Usually it's while I'm doing makeup, but not exclusively. I think I'm going to open it up to just doing some handicrafts and stuff like that. Anything that can keep my hands and your eyes busy so that I can continue to talk ad nauseum about things that matter to me. The gimmick of Daisy Chains being that every video has one word in its title in common with the video before it and the video after it, making this long, continuous train of abstract and difficult to understand and unnecessary thoughts. But hey, they're knocking around in my skull. I'm not gonna suffer quietly. Here we are. And suffering in silence is honestly something I could really get on board with when it comes to the topic of the day. Religious psychosis, which originally I thought was just like a buzzword, but now I'm starting to think has some actual credential behind it. Religious psychosis is taking a real toll on the internet. To explain what I'm talking about, let me go back to the examples I mentioned before in a little more detail. Starting with Bellatown. Bellatown, if you don't know, is a trans creator, or at least was a trans creator, is still a trans creator, I don't know, they're still a creator, we'll get there, who became famous on TikTok for their very entertaining style of storytelling. They were quick-witted and clever, and they still are all of those things, but unfortunately their public opinion has now been soured a bit when they first played on their audience's concerns and sympathies by claiming that they had found Jesus and detransitioned after going to conversion therapy camp. Or conversion therapy, I don't actually necessarily know that it was a camp. For some reason, that's just what's sticking in my head. That might not be true. But it was conversion therapy of some kind. However, then in a later post, they actually walked back their own claim and said that it was just a joke. Which I remember seeing a video of somebody saying that this was going to be what they were going to do, that they were going to come clean about this being a joke. And everybody was like, that would make this even worse. And then they did. And it was. I mean, I unfollowed immediately after seeing that they detransitioned at all because, frankly, I don't really have the time for religious psychosis. I mean, who does? Who does in this busy-ass world? I don't have the time to give people grace for utilizing their platforms to espouse nonsense about their sudden finding of Christ that somehow also necessitates them completely abandoning everything they stood for before. You can do both. Jesus doesn't care if you're trans. Jesus doesn't care if you're gay. Jesus doesn't even care if you do tarot. Half of Christianity is just witchcraft at this point. I don't know what point Bellatown was trying to make with this sick, strange joke, but ultimately it backfired in a pretty severe way as they lost trust with most people on their platform. They are easily not going to be seen the same way again, and they shouldn't be. That was a really fucked up thing to do. Now, the dead giveaway should have been that they didn't delete any of their content, so either it demonstrates a lack of commitment to the bit, or it demonstrates that they were, too lazy to delete their content. I don't know. I don't know exactly what it meant, but it should have been a giveaway that something wasn't consistent. Like, if they kept all of their content up, but they were serious about detransitioning, then that means they were capitalizing on things that they no longer really valued. But also, it could just be who the fuck wants to go through all their content and delete everything, Now, Alex Reads Tarot is a decidedly different case, mostly in that she did the exact opposite. She deleted all of her content, except for the video explaining why she was now leaving. I've been following her for a few years, and she was my favorite tarot reader because, besides the fact that, at least in my life, her readings usually proved to be pretty accurate, if admittedly a little generic, and even if it was harsh truths that she was delivering, it always felt like she was doing so out of a place of respect and kindness. Her readings were always stern, but fair. Fairly recently, she made the decision to remove all of her content altogether off of TikTok, except for the one video explaining that she was leaving and why. Now, some people in the comments immediately assumed the most unflattering and kind of cruelest ways this could possibly be interpreted. They were claiming that this was proof that it was all an act the entire time, that she was never sincere, and that at the first whiff of trouble, she was immediately going back to her old comfort beliefs and support systems. I don't fucking buy that. Especially the parts about her being a privileged white occultist. Listen, I get it. Spiritualism obviously has a lot of its roots in race, a lot of its roots in cultural beliefs, but to immediately pin everything on that, I think it's just a little counterproductive. Absolutely, we need to continue to be having discussions about critical race theory, but I don't think it's very productive to constantly throw that as the reason everybody does anything bad. Oh, it must be racism. It's like, yeah, there's probably an element of privilege here. There definitely is. I mean, she's very successful at a very young age. She hasn't really understood what it is to not achieve her goals before, but I still don't think it's particularly useful to immediately disregard this as being something born out of privilege and not a bigger issue. I also don't think it's very fair to Alex. The entire time that I have been following her, I have to say, she has been very transparent about her beliefs, about being a Christian, and yet I don't feel that she has ever come across as preachy or trying to get everybody else on her side.
I don't know who needs this reminder, but your faith is going to look foolish to those who are headed down the path of wickedness.
She uses her faith as a way of channeling messages and interpreting things, but she's made it very clear throughout her entire catalog that different things work for everybody and none of them are incorrect. As long as they don't hurt anyone, of course.
I know people want to hear my testimony, so here we go. I'm sorry for any noise. It's very warm here, so we're trying to ventilate. It's a little bit hot today. So I started my walk with God about nearly a year ago. It was around August or September.
A lot of people were saying that this was an immediate betrayal of that, and I don't think that's the case. I think it's a little bit bad faith to be making that argument. Now, let me stress that in the actual content of the video, nowhere does she denounce tarot, and at no point does she say that her way is the correct way and everybody needs to follow it. All she does is imply that this is her personal journey. Now, do I necessarily think it's a good idea? Not for me, but I'm not her, and I don't know her. We don't know her. Remember about that? Do we remember? The internet has made everybody way too accessible to everybody else, and I feel like we forget that pretty often. All she said was that it just doesn't resonate for her anymore personally. Frankly, I get that. In Alex's case, I don't think it was a matter of religious psychosis. I think she was already a Christian, and I think that tarot no longer resonated for her in the same way that it did when she was younger, possibly because doing anything that you love or have known for a while as a profession quickly changes your relationship with it. Don't ask me how I know. And it's also a decision that kind of makes sense for her based on her previous stories about clients being a little too, shall we say fucking rude. She was too nice to say that, but what she was describing, I'll say it was fucking rude. Her clients at times were being entitled and mean. And all of this after having to deal with that lawsuit scandal back when she was like first starting on TikTok. And this girl, mind you, is 22, 23. She's young. She has a lot to figure out. And a lot of the comments were saying it's a man, isn't it? And they were being deleted. So there's a good chance that that is. But again, she's 22, 23. Let her figure it out. This is her journey. This is not ours. She takes this without us. Thank you. So we have one example that is an argument not necessarily for religious psychosis, but for a person stepping away from a public platform. We have another that is a person just kind of being deceptive in general. And now the third one, my personal anecdote. Buckle up for this one. A former friend of mine in the local drag scene that I no longer visit for my own purposes and my own reasons, about a year after we had a falling out, made a post on their Instagram dramatically declaring that they had left the sins of homosexuality behind them, had found Jesus, and were looking forward to starting a family with a wife. Now, let me clarify by initially saying that this is none of my business. I bring it up because it is relevant right now. Technically speaking, None of the things that I'm talking about in this episode are my business, but I'm talking about them anyway, because they're relevant to a larger issue. Now, due to our falling out and everything, this person and I have no reason to be in one another's business. It was just enough of a scandal in our local scene that even I was hearing about it. Nevertheless, despite our falling out, this still worried me. It seemed a little too out of left field, you know? Not only did it seem completely out of left field because this person was long-standing practicing Jewish, had a same-sex partner the last time I had called them, and as far as I could tell, a loving but strained relationship with their family, who knew that they were gay and had no problem with it. But what was most shocking to me is that not long before this all went down, they had had multiple opportunities to participate in sex work and were looking forward to the possibility. Now, sex work is a very valid and very difficult to enter industry, so I was happy for them to have this opportunity. But this scenario, this is very different. This discovery on their part came out of nowhere and with such a fervor and intensity of belief that it immediately read as negative. I mean, it was like the factory where they make red flags had been shut down because of all of their merchandise was bought for their purpose. Like, it read as completely insincere and worrisome. Of course, the people in our local scene didn't really read it that way. They read it as a joke and they made fun of them as a result. Another reason why I left. Maybe this really is part of their journey, you know? Maybe it really is what they need, but I sincerely doubt that. Especially because of how many of their supportive friends I suddenly saw commenting under that post, who I had never seen commenting on any of their posts beforehand. Where were these people? Where were they beforehand? I don't remember seeing them. And as mentioned before, with this decision on their part being mocked and basically bullied by a lot of people online from our local scene, it reinforces something that I already knew. This former friend of mine was regularly berated and belittled and bullied on any number of the aspects of their drag by many of the people in our community. At the time that we were close, it was all I could really do to help convince them that they were doing a good job. But what could a person in that position really be expected to do when they are constantly being told that their art is bad and they're bad? Religious cult-like indoctrination is nothing new, as we know, but there's a reason it's suddenly meeting with odd successes like this in the modern arena. I mean, it's found the perfect environment in which to grow. Let me ask you a fair question. Why do people seek community? Support? Validation? They seek the things that they're lacking in other circles. And desperate people who have been rejected by other communities do not always exercise the best judgment and character. If a community promises them something that they haven't found elsewhere, then there's a good chance that out of desperation they'll take it. And the modern world has a pretty distinctive lack in community spaces that practice what they preach nowadays. Whether they were or not, this former friend of mine felt completely alone. And then in comes this faceless entity of love and support as long as you do the following things and believe the following things, right? It promises what they lack if they compromise, and so, with very few other options, they compromise. They compromise who they are, they compromise their nature, and they compromise their chances for real, genuine connection. All at the age of roughly 22, 23, Alex Reed's Tarot had to deal with a messy breakup and a pretty fearsome lawsuit, while the internet continued to place high demands on her personal client readings, expecting greatness in everything she attempted. Then when she tried to communicate this sudden change of heart that she's been meditating on for quite some time, she was met with almost immediate and instantaneous backlash, despite her proceeding as calmly and transparently as she could. Bellatown may not have been genuine, but the initial response to their detransitioning was filled with such vitriol and reactionary language, and there were messages of genuine concern, but a lot were just attacking them, and it certainly proves a very different point. The world at large in the modern day has a really serious problem with a lack of compassion and community. And as we continue to get clickier, we are continuing to foster atmospheres and environments in which these predatory cults, like the Manosphere and MAGA and evangelical Christians, can really thrive with little to no resistance. When everything has a tremendous cost and you can receive extreme backlash to the tiniest of deviations and differences in opinion, that maybe doesn't fit the preconceived notion of what is right by societal expectations, and nobody is allowed to question fucking anything, then that's where those schools of thought really thrive. And if you ask me, I really don't think they need our help with that. But despite that, my name is still Daisy Mays, and I am still wishing you all some very happy days.